And we are live, and hello, tonight is Devil's Night, and I've decided to talk to two very sophisticated motherfuckers about a very awesome movie, The Crow. You all probably know Martin Anthropomanic Fiend, but this is also a really good friend of mine, Anthony O'Neill. He was an artist on two of my comics. He was a collaborator with two of my comics. He's a fantastic artist. He loves his music, he loves his Edgar Allan Poe, and is a huge fucking Crow fan. So Andrew, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. What was your introduction to The Crow? Was it the movie or was it the comic?
It was the movie for me. I've always just loved the dark side of culture in general, and it's just something I heard talked about again and again, and it sounded like just right up my alley. So I was like, I need to check this out as soon as possible, and I did. And between the actual story and just the music and aesthetic of everything, I was hooked.
And do you think it still holds up today, or do you think it's more of a beast of the 90s? Do you think?
I think for today, it's definitely a product of its time in terms of just what kind of cultural things are in the movie, but the story itself completely holds up.
And Anthony, what about yourself? What was your introduction to The Crow?
For me, it was the book. I got into it a long time ago. I think I've spoke to you, Martin, about my uncle Paul before. He's a big kind of influence just on my life in general because he's a writer, and he was actually the one who turned me on to the book. He was like, "This is going to suit you. You should check this out." At the time, I was a big goth, and I was like hanging around in like Central Bank in Dublin a lot, so wearing like nothing but long trenches and guy liner. So he was like, "Yeah, you should check this shit out," and I was like, "Wow, yeah." It just affected me in a way that nothing ever had like that before at the time. So
and it's very evident when you done Nestor for me, the aesthetic, the mood, the tone, the look. You embodied something that was very very similar to James O'Barr's kind of aesthetic for that book. But again, you brought your own kind of taste and flavor to it as well. But you as you said in the earlier video, it was a big influence on Nestor.
Oh, definitely, and like cheers for that as well.
Yeah, no, I wanted an expert. I didn't want to just fucking waffle off fucking my usual horseshit. But do you think it still holds up? Do you think it still holds up today, and do you think it still has relevance today?
100%, like absolutely, because it's got universal themes. You know, it's got like themes in there that will always relate to people. It's loss, it's death, it's grief. You know, it's also it's that feeling of not only being powerless, but it's also that feeling of wanting to go against that powerlessness and take charge of your life. Although we might not all be able to come back from the dead and avenge the people who've been taken away from us, we can all feel like we want to. We can all feel like no matter what goes wrong in our lives, we want to be able to fight back on a more grand scale in a way that really kind of manifests, you know, how we feel about things, like, and how greatly we feel when we've been wronged. So, I mean, yeah, it's always going to be relevant.
What would you say O'Barr's influences, be it music or art or culturally, kind of what do you think went into influencing in the comic and the aesthetic, Alex Proyas's kind of aesthetic of the movie? I got a very kind of when the movie when the camera's going over the city, I got a very kind of Cabinet of Dr. Caligari look, kind of German expressionism to the city. But what do you think? What do you guys think was influences, be it on the book or the movie? Be it music-wise or kind of literature-wise?
Well,
go ahead, Anta.
All right. Just looking at things that James O'Barr has just talked about, like there's a whole just interview with him on the disc of the movie. Just looking on his walls, he's got like posters of Peter Murphy and Bauhaus. He loves the classic goth and punk bands, and those were just both an influence on just sort of the look of Eric Draven as a character and just sort of the sensibility of the comic. So I think that's a big part of it. and that stuff just aesthetically comes a lot from the German expressionist stuff like Caligari.
And what about yourself, Anthony? What do you think, music-wise or kind of literature-wise, would have been a big influence on Barr when he was?
I'd say the same as you guys. Like, as you said, Caligari, you know, the whole like punk kind of goth scene of the 1980s as well. He's gone on record as well of saying that like he actually based all of Eric Draven's topless scenes on not only ballet dancers but also Iggy Pop as well, and his like expression and how he holds himself on stage. There's a famous panel at the end of the book where he's being riddled with bullets. I actually have it here. And he just like, it reeks of Iggy, like just the body, how it's drawn, the sinuousness of the muscles, and the muscles, and how he literally looks like, exactly, like he looks like Iggy when he comes out on stage, just those arms outstretched and just enveloping everything that's coming at him. Like,
hello Ben. I watched the movie earlier on for the review. And something I found, moving on to Brandon Lee, he has a very minimalistic performance, but in the little dialogue he's given, he conveys so much fucking emotion, and he's so fucking likable. And that to me is the sign of a fantastic actor. Do you think that is down to Brandon Lee or down to the character, his embodiment of the character? I think. Like, I read the comic a while back. I'm like you, Anthony. I need to catch up on the book again. But I think the character in the comic has far more dialogue than Lee did in the movie. What do you think? What makes him such a compelling character?
As I said earlier, like it's the universal themes, and I think too as well. It's the idea of the victimization of someone. You know, like whether it's, you know, we're talking about the book where they've been pulled over, or we're talking about the movie where it's a home invasion. Either way, it's, you know, it's the idea of being victimized and having something torn away from you and being able to fight to get that back, or at least even avenge what had happened to you. I think it's. I know I'm just repeating myself, but
no. Well, I get that. Do you think Eric Draven, the character, also embodies the outsider, the goth, the person who's always been put upon, and you're just their struggle to fucking edge out a life for themselves in a world that kind of won't really accept them? Or am I thinking, is that a bit of a deep dive or a bit of a reach? Do you think?
No, you're hitting the nail on the head. I think Anthro also wants to pitch in with this.
Yeah.
Go on, Anthro. What were you going to say?
And I think he embodies those two sort of sides of the outsider, both the really sort of introverted, on the fringes aspect, but also that very sort of flamboyant, aggressive punk aspect, the whole physicality of Iggy Pop, as you mentioned. There's that sort of sad, but also sort of aggressive and almost playful thing that he does. There's that duality to it.
There is, like, again, some of my favorite scenes is like he straps T-Bird up with masking tape and explosives and puts the car going, and as the car's going off, I don't know if you can see it, but if the car's going off, he gives this cute little wave as the car's going off the fucking pier. Or even when he winks at Tony Todd as he fucking jumps out he's that cheeky fucking rocker that everyone fucking knows. Like that's something I loved about his portrayal. Like, hey, Corey, how you doing? Favorite scenes? Sorry, Anthony. What?
Favorite scenes?
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes of all time would be one that Brandon actually improvised. It's the one where he's talking to the little girl. I can't remember the little girl's name, but he's speaking to the little girl, and he says, "Mother is the name for God on the lips and hearts of all children." And it's actually a quote from a Shakespeare piece. I can't remember which one it is, but it's I always love that line. Like, that stuck with me the rest of my life, and that was the first time I had ever heard it. I'm not going to pretend that I was a big Shakespeare fan when I was a teenager. I wasn't. But yeah, like, that line is just, and the way he delivers it as well, like, you get the impression that, like, you know, there's two sides to Brandon's performance. It's like he's got this side where he's still human, where he's still, you know, Eric, but then there's this other side where he's allowing himself to give in to this angel of death type persona, and he's just going with it. He's just letting it take him over. And at that point, I feel like Brandon was really trying to portray the idea, yes, it's taking me over now. It's taking the wheel. It's driving, not me. And I loved that. Just that whole scene is gorgeous.
What about yourself, Antro? Have you any particular scene that you enjoy or that you like?
The first one that comes to mind, and I'm not 100% sure why, I can't just dissect it right off the top of my head, is the one where he is just he's just playing guitar, and then out of the blue he just smashes it in this fit, and just that scene just sticks with me for some reason.
I like in my review, and like Anthony mentioned it there, he's been taken over. And also from reading James O'Barr's kind of prequel, Skin in the Wolves. When you come back, the thing I got is your mind is fragmented, and like I wouldn't call it autistic, but just I think that Eric's emotions are kind of just run ragged, and maybe there is some kind of catharsis out of playing the guitar when he's not strapping a guy to a fucking car, or he's not like sticking knives in some dude, but he still needs to vent, and up on that roof there, and it's what he knows, like, you know.
It reminds me of like memory association with people with Alzheimer's. It's like he's trying to hold on to who he is, and his instincts tell him, oh, this is a thing you did, you should do this. But it's almost like, as I said, once that other persona takes over, he's aggravated and he's pissed off because he's not that anymore. And it's just a reminder that Shelley is gone. And I think that's why the destruction of the guitar resonates so well, because we can all relate to that. It's like, I'm not who I want to be. Everything that I had is gone. Fuck it all. And he just fucking destroys it, which is kick ass. It's a visual way of saying that without even putting it in. It's more than just an MTV movie scene.
Yeah, it's there's a purpose to it. It's not just something flashy. Flickering on to the aspect of music, there was a lot of bands featured in The Crow, but do you think there's any bands that are around today that have been influenced either by the aesthetic or the music or the feel? Do you think that there's any bands that kind of have had a bit of a kind of a push as a result? I'm gonna say.
I mean, definitely. I mean, the first thing that comes to my head, which is just super obvious, is a couple of years ago, Ice Nine Kills wrote a song called "The Grave Mistake," which is literally about The Crow from Eric Draven's perspective. I love that song, but just aesthetically, a lot of the sort of especially the gothic metal bands kind of sort of take that very sort of more sort of industrial leather-ish take on that sort of dark gothic thing and run with that in a much more exaggerated way, though.
And what about yourself, Anthony? Is there any bands that you think took major influence from The Crow, be it the aesthetic or the music or the look or the feel?
I mean, all you got to do is look at my CD collection. Literally, like it's him, it's The Cure, it's well, The Cure was around at the same time, but you know, that's
right,
whatever.
They're in the movie. Their music's in the movie.
Exactly, yeah. Like, you know, you've also got things like Ghost. You've got things like 69 Eyes. Like there's so many bands that have just been completely influenced by not just the visual aspects of that film, but as I was saying in the video that we did earlier, Martin, it's the undertone, it's the atmosphere. There's a resonant attitude that comes with that film that can only be understood if you've lived it. That can only be understood if you've felt what it's like to be a teenager sitting in your dark, dank room, listening to your shitty, loud music and saying, fuck the world, everything's crap. No one else can feel that unless you've been there. And it's that, every single one of those bands that I just mentioned and more, they resonate that atmosphere. And it's, it was apparent before The Crow, but The Crow it was like the last little bit of salt to go into the stew, if that makes sense. It was something that really just encapsulated the whole thing.
I get you. Bar Brandon Lee's character, or bar the Crow, have you guys any other characters from that movie that you really liked, that you enjoyed?
Go ahead, Andrew.
I mean, I love all of the characters. The cop who he sort of bonds with throughout the film. I'm forgetting
Ernie Hudson. Ernie Hudson's character.
Yeah,
he's nice. He's likable. He's just like it's obvious. The fact is, his career took a fucking nosedive because he took a personal involvement in the case, and when Eric comes back, he realizes that this guy spent 30 fucking hours by his girlfriend's side, and Ernie Hudson's character says, "Oh, I wanted to I wanted to be there if she woke up so I could catch these guys." It wasn't just that; it was because he was a decent human being as well. And Eric, the bit where Sarah, that's the name of the girl. The bit where Sarah comes back into it.
I was saying Shelley in your video.
Sorry?
I was saying Shelley in your video. I don't know. Is Shelley the little girl?
No.
I can't remember.
Sarah's little girl, Shelley's the girlfriend.
Shelley is the girl. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I was trying.
But Ernie Hudson's character is pretty cool. What about yourself, Anthony? Have you any particular not
to get
go on?
Not to get into a laundry list. I have a few. I love Shelley. I think just her kind of her presence in the book and in the movie as this almost like how, I mean, look, there's this great psychology that goes on in the film and the book. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is this blinding white light that is just absolutely like everything. But what I love is that through the movie and through the book, we see Shelley through Brandon's eyes or through Eric's eyes.
Eric's eyes.
And and we see her as this perfection. We see her as this like white light, like she's constantly going around in these like flamboyant flowing gowns, and
to him, an angel.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. I love the idea that it's almost like she represents that perfection, and we see that through him. But then there's also, you've got the other side of it as well with the Skull Cowboy. He represents almost like his sense of guilt. He's constantly there in the background, reminding him of that moment, reminding him of how it all happened, and he's always there, just constantly as just a tumor in the back of his head, just saying, "You have a duty. You need to do this." And I love that about the book. And I love Sarah. I love Fun Boy. I just so many good layers to this book and to this film.
I gotta go with Michael Winscott as top dollar. There is just something so beautifully nihilistic about it. This guy is like, he is like,
he's
okay, there's an unkillable fucker killing my men. Big fucking deal. It's no fucking skin off his nose. And Winscott, it's the bit who's Skank, where he goes, "What about you, boy? How do you feel?" "I feel like a little worm in a big fucking hook." He feels like I love that. I love that. And even when he's talking to his fucked up kind of sister / girlfriend, he's like, "My father taught me the minute you're born, you die." It's just that he gives no shits. He gives no shits.
Carol too, she is just messed up on so many other levels. She is just I always get in my head that moment, where she's like, "I like the pretty lights." I'm just like, well, what are you talking about? That's so weird.
She's cutting out fucking prostitutes' eyes and shit like that. You're like, what the fuck? Again, it's just they are comic book characters, but there's something gritty, and you could see someone like this existing. You could see someone like this
absolutely.
not giving a fuck. Like,
dude, like where we live, I mean, we see people like this all the time, like
oh
on
yeah,
a regular basis.
our town is fucking weirdo. So, okay, so I got a very kind of, I don't know what I call it, controversial or topical question. Do you think if the tragedy of Brandon Lee's death hadn't have happened, the movie would have reached the cult status it has now? Sorry, that's kind of a loaded question, but I'm just interested to get your take on it.
No, it's a good question. It's a good question. You go ahead, Andrew.
I would say yes. It wouldn't quite have the kind of extra layer of sort of somberness to it that added, but I think it still would have resonated with people just because of the storytelling and everything.
Like, it's just, there is a whole mythos behind this movie as a result of his death, like, you know, and it's pretty sad, and it's pretty tragic, but it's also eerie, as you said, Anthony. Like, his last interview was very kind of, it was very coincidental. Like, what was it he said in his last interview?
He's quoting some sort of, like, I think it's either Japanese, Chinese, or something, like philosopher or something. And he said, like, just before his death, he was researching this person a lot, and they had some sort of it was like a piece. I don't know what you would call it, like just maybe a thesis or something. But he starts quoting it, and he starts saying how, the piece talks about how life is fragile and how, it's so fleeting. And he's talking about how, like how many sunrises will you see before you die? How many moon rises will you see before it's all over? And it's just so, it's eerie. It's eerie because it was literally within that week that he died. And he had been, as I was saying earlier in your video, Martin, like the way I was saying that I literally like ate, slept, breathed The Crow. He was doing this with this philosopher, whoever it was. Like, he was doing this at the time, and it's just so resonant and poignant, the idea that he was just so wrapped around this idea of death and taking it all in and being observant of everything. And then he bit the bullet, literally. No pun intended.
Did you think that, and I'm deviating here, but like, there's all kinds of speculation about there was some curse on the Lee family, but you think that's like kind of something that maybe was playing into his mind to make him think about such things? Because, like, obviously, okay, his father was Bruce Lee, and as you said, he was reading some kind of very Eastern philosophical kind of stuff, so obviously he would have gotten that from his father. But do you think that always played in his mind, having lost his father at such an early age?
You know what? It's weird, like, because I was having this conversation with my girlfriend the other day, and I was saying to her, the fact of the matter is, like, we live in a society where we want to kind of like take everything at face value, and we live in such a scientific time that we're all so easy to dismiss things of spirituality and things of, of the supernatural nature. The fact of the matter is, like, we don't know anything as a society about the afterlife, about curses, about, any of this stuff. We know nothing. And the idea to believe that we do is slightly a bit arrogant in a way, because, there's so much to it. It's a vast topic. So for one of us to just be like, oh, it was a gun, it was whatever, it's a little bit, we don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, we can say it was the gun, and we can say it was the blank, and we can go backwards through the moments of how it all happened. And sure, we can say, yeah, it happened because of X, Y, and Z. But, one of the interesting things to think about is, like, and I'm not saying that it is this, me, Martin, I'm a
you're open-minded about stuff, yeah.
I'm a skeptic as well, though. I'm the type of person who I have to see to believe.
And you're pragmatic about stuff. Yeah, I get that as well.
Yeah, exactly. But I like to keep my mind open, and like it is, whether it be true or whether it be false, it's interesting to imagine that there is a possibility that maybe the curse influenced his life to go a certain direction. I'm not saying that did happen. Obviously, I can't. But the fact of the matter is, it would be interesting to think that the fact of the matter is, every single one of the people in his family, well, most of the males around, that generation, like they died for like strange reasons. Like there's Bruce Lee. As far as I know, it was smelling salts. He had like an allergic reaction to the smelling salts while filming the other comic book film. It wasn't a film; it was a TV series, Green Hornet.
It may not be Green Hornet. It could have been not Game of Death. What was the other fucking one? Regardless, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, it was just again, it was very parallel. It was on the set. It was as a result of filming movie, TV show, whatever. But there was that very much mirrored kind of event which happened and which occurred, and it is creepy. What do you think, Antro? Do you think it's kind of weird that like he died very similar to the circumstances his father died, or do you think maybe it's just the universe has a sense of coincidence?
I mean, yeah. Again, I do like to try and consider everything, but I wasn't there. There's no real way to know what the exact cause of any of it was, but the fact that it happened similarly to what happened with Bruce, and that it happened with a movie that is so focused around loss and death anyway, is really eerie.
It's absolutely, yeah.
It's strange.
It's also like it's almost like kind of like an Icarus complex as well when you think about it. It's like both of them flew so high and they got to such a height in their careers, and they did so much to a point that, like, the both of them were very well achieved, and then it was like they just weren't allowed anymore. And as far as they know, Bruce's father was the same. Bruce's father was like, maybe not to the point of like world fame, but he was well renowned in the village that he lived in, and everyone loved him. And he was famous for being like that nice guy that you would always go to and that kind of thing. It is strange. Like, it's strange to think that, like Anthro was hitting on, and like I was saying earlier, it's no one knows. But it's interesting to think. It's interesting to put at least a small bit of thought into.
Okay, next question, right? And there's multiple answers to this. Why do you think the sequels didn't succeed? Antro, do you want to take this, or?
I'm going to get my charger. 2 seconds. I can still hear you.
Right. To be fair, I haven't seen the sequels all the way through. I haven't really given them the chance they deserve. Just haven't really given them that time. But I've been told that at least the second one is a decent movie by some people. It just doesn't. There's this inconsistency with the first one, and it doesn't have, I guess, that source material behind it, and the kind of acting talent that the original had. So it just doesn't resonate because it doesn't have those elements, I guess.
It's not a bad movie. It was chopped to pieces by Miramax, and there was apparently an awesome fight between Kelly Trang, who played the Yellow Ranger, between her and I forget the character's name. I think there is it's a case of bad kind of direction and stuff. But the other ones, there was another one like David Barones and it was Edward Forlon. Edward Forlon was
who's the kid from Terminator?
Yeah, it was John Connor.
Who's the kid from
Terminator? And
I seen one with him. I seen one with him a couple of years back, and like I can only speak from my own opinion. But with me, like as Anthro said earlier, it's not the same source material. Like you've got the fact that James he suffered from actual loss. Like he felt that, he knew what it meant to lose somebody. Everyone else was just skating on the coattails of this dude who had came up with something that was resonating with the rest of the world. And like big corporate companies do so well, they just latched on and tried to basically create more and more and more until it just fucking ate itself. But like I think the other reason, apart from, as Antor said, the source material, I think the other reason that it didn't work as well was just that there was no passion. Like if you don't have passion in a project, if you're just making something simply for the sake of being a sequel, it's not going to work out. I mean, it's definitely going to become a straight to VHS type film.
The other ones were cash cows. They were just put out to fucking make a quick buck, and there was no love or attention to them. So that leads on to another question, and this is going to be a heavy fucking question for you. But okay, so if you were to cast either a reboot or a sequel, who would you cast, and what music would you put in it? Antro, do you want to give this a go first? Give Antro a chance, or have you been planning it in your head what you do? Would you have a sequel or a remake, or like, because there is a remake in the works with Jason Momoa.
Oh,
It's
really?
fucking huge.
I had forgotten that.
That's true.
That dude is massive. But if you had to do a kind of remake or a sequel, who would you cast as the Crow, and what contemporary music would you put in it?
You go ahead, Andrew.
All right. I always kind of suck at fan casting, except like whenever I'm asked, my mind just goes blank on every actor I've ever heard of. But God, in terms of music, like you were talking about, a lot of the modern gothic metal bands have been really influenced by the whole aesthetic of the Crow. So bands like the 69 Eyes, like him, like Paradise Lost, they have that feeling that I think would work really well in a remake of the Crow. I'll have to think a little bit about who I'd actually cast as Eric Draven, though.
Yeah.
Well, and anyone you think, Anthony? Anyone comes to mind?
If him wasn't in that film with a version of Join Me in Death, I would riot. I would have a serious issue with that. Yeah, him anyway. I'd throw Join Me in Death somewhere, even if it's just a small piece of the piano. I don't know. But in terms of casting Eric, that's the big question. I don't think, look, I like Momoa, but I don't think he's going to have it. I don't think he's going to have what it takes. I think they just seen a big dude who has long hair, who's pretty, and they're just like, yeah, get him.
According to Mark now, he's actually backed out.
Oh, really? Yeah. It was big shoes to fill, like. It's a big legacy to follow. I'm trying to think of like who I would actually pick, but I you know me, Martin, I'm terrible with names and actors. I can really only just pick people who I know as other people and then say that character that they played. I'm terrible for actors' names.
Okay. What other actor has been in a role that comes close to Eric Draven that you could put him in? Like like people have touted your man from fucking Sons of Anarchy, but he's just too fucking pretty. He's not really. I don't know.
You see, the thing that Brandon brought to the role was that he had this essence about him where it was like, first of all, he's Bruce Lee's son, so you're not going to fuck with him. You know, he can handle himself. Secondly, you know, like he had this aspect where it was almost like a new romantic kind of aspect. You could feel in his performance that he loved Shelley, and you believed that wholeheartedly because he had a soft side. And when he's in those moments, like where he's talking about how she died, you believe him 100%. And I think one of the things that would kind of stump me on casting an actor of today is that You know, like I don't have an awful lot of actors who I can name who can do that, who can represent an idea of, you know, oh, he's hard and he's heavy and he's big and he's strong, but he's also not scared of being soft, and he's not scared of like showing that emotion and coming off as if, you know, he is kind of a girly boy in essence, because like, let's face it, there was a lot of kind of femboy aspects to The Crow too, which is cool. I like that. I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, that's the part that would stump me.
Right, and that sort of effeminate aspect is again a big part of the whole goth and punk culture. It's aggressive and it's dark, but there's a femininity to it which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, if you had to, it's going to be difficult for you, Anto, but if you had to sum up what The Crow is in a paragraph, in a sentence or a paragraph, how would you explain The Crow, or how would you try and push The Crow onto someone? How would you convert them to a fan of the movie?
You asking for Antro or me?
Whoever wants to go first.
You go ahead, Antro. Yeah.
Well, I was actually just talking. I had a vocal lesson with my voice teacher, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be watching The Crow later tonight because it's Devil's Night." And she was she hasn't seen The Crow, so I had to basically explain to her, "Oh, it's this story of this couple who get murdered. Someone breaks in on them and murders them, and basically it's a really bleak, dark movie, but it's also incredibly romantic. Those are the two biggest things. It's a revenge story, but it's romance."
Anthony, do you want to go on a soapbox with this one? Go on, because I know you.
I mean, like, look, if someone told me, like, you know, how would you describe The Crow, I would definitely tell them it's a love letter to every goth, every little 80s boy, every guy who stuck eyeliner on and looked at himself in the mirror and said, "This looks cool. I wish I could wear this every day." You know, like it's there for people who like I explained in fucking like enormous detail in your video earlier, Martin. It's for people who enjoy the darker aspects of life. It's for people who find solace in the shadows. It's romantic. It's edgy. It's action packed, but it's also got this message which is like so much greater than the sum of its parts. I'd say that'd be it.
Okay. If someone was a fan of The Crow and they wanted to expand their kind of their taste to literature or music, what kind of books or music would you tell them? But barring the comic, what other kind of novels or music or stuff would you suggest that they should check out?
For me, it would be things like Edgar Allan Poe, things like Lovecraft. You know, like as I said, like I can't. This is not a him publicity video, I swear. But yeah, him. I mean, sorry.
I said it can be a him publicity video if you want it to be.
Work away, dude.
Yeah.
Is there any particular album from him that you would suggest that they should listen to?
Deep Shadows and Brilliant Highlights and Venus Doom, hands down, are like some of the greatest albums. Venus Doom is just a magnum opus. It's just the lyrical genius in that album alone. There's a song called Sleepwalking Past Hope, which is just, I mean, you want to talk about magnum opus, that one is a magnum opus. It's insanely good. There's another one called Song or Suicide on there. Every single one of these songs relates back to what we're talking about. You know, it's got that sense of melancholy, that sense of romance, that sense of doom. It just fits in there. It all relates back to that kind of like that original atmosphere that Edgar Allan Poe created so long ago. You know, like it just reflects on that. Yeah.
What about yourself, Antro? What would you suggest, be it music or literature-wise? What would you tell people to check out, or what do you think would be a kind of the Crow would be a springboard for them to enjoy a particular type of music or a particular type of novel or the like?
Let me think. Well, the first thing that sort of came to mind as like a modern counterpart, just in my head, was a movie, and that's Mandy. I think it's another great story of revenge and of love with this very dark style to it, in a different way, with a very bizarre sense of humor and this whole psychedelic aspect, but it has that same sort of heart to it and that same darkness to it.
Mandy, Anthony, have you seen Mandy yet?
No,
Basically,
no, I haven't. I must check it out.
Imagine Nicolas Cage lives in a world that is like an album cover from kind of fucking glam rock or hard rock from the 80s. And
Nice.
he's to fight a bunch of fucking coked up leather-clad rockers with like a specially made axe and crossbow because they burnt his. It's a fantastic fucking movie, man. You could pause it and you could take a pause scene and put it on the cover of an album, and you would think it would be something that came out in like circa 86 to 89.
Yeah,
it's
a living stoner metal album cover movie.
Yeah.
Nice. That sounds very cool.
But no, I think that like we have there's a lot of kind of really cool kind of music and kind of, be it comics, obviously O'Barr influenced comics such as the Nestor and stuff, but he obviously had a big part to play on the likes of maybe Todd McFarlane when he kind of came up with Spawn and stuff. They're that kind of, kind of Avenger back to the day with the religious iconography and stuff like that. But I think it's one of those things that's an absolute time capsule of the 90s. But as you said, the themes are so transcendent that they still work today. But yeah, I think if you're going to watch a movie tonight, do check out The Crow, and it's a pretty fucking awesome flick. And Brandon Lee, tragically, he should have gone on to make a rake more stuff.
It is the worst part, isn't it? Like it's one of those things where it's like we can only watch and imagine where this thing would have went because
not taken kind of thing. Like because
the dude, go ahead. Sorry, there's a bit of lag. It's just one of those things. It's like the fact of the matter is they said that they did want to create a saga out of this. They did want to create a series, and they did want a sequel. But it was obviously like cut short because of what happened. But I mean, like, no, I don't honestly, I'm gonna like just put my foot down and actually just like say, like concretely that I don't think there will ever be another version that will live up to this because of what we were talking about earlier, because of, the event that is wrapped around this and the person that it was and how it all like happened. I don't think anything could ever be like that again. Yeah, it's as Mary said, it's a shame because he was a great actor and his flame burnt out before it did. I'm going to wrap it up, but before I do, Antro, is there anything you want to plug for people watching?
I have a special video coming out tomorrow for Halloween on a specific franchise, just analyzing all of the movies. And this isn't me, but in like 10 or 15 minutes, Queenie Todd will be doing their Devil's Night watch along with The Crow. So if you want to check that out after this discussion,
I'll actually put a link on the screen to it. Yeah, no. After this, go check out that. Anthony, if anyone wants to get in touch or check out your art or check out your stuff, where can they go?
Like Twitter is normally the best place, just at AntoLuke616. I do have a blog spot. It's just called The Loud Whisper. But it's there. I don't do anything with it. I just every now and again I'll throw something up. But yeah, Twitter, mainly Twitter.
No, again, your art is like fucking phenomenal, and hopefully you and me will get something going in the pipeline again if I can get the fucking thumb out, you know. The usual kind of shit.
Hopefully, man.
But
Yeah.
no, I'm going to dust off. But thanks a million, Antro, for joining me.
Thanks
Thanks
for
a
having
million,
us.
Anthony, for joining me. Check out these two sexy bastards if you get a chance. And yeah, have a good one. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.